Greg, would you mind giving that 35,000-foot view of what the piece is about?
The source material for these operas, I consider it an odd trio of Barber of Seville, Marriage of Figaro, and The Guilty Mother, which becomes The Ghost of Versailles eventually, just 20 years ago, are three plays by French playwright Beaumarchais. He is an incredibly fascinating figure. I'll give you the briefest of outlines. He basically was a watchmaker, had a patent dispute. He won the patent dispute, became watchmaker to Louis XV, taught his four daughters harp lessons. He was a musician, a playwright. He ends up getting very attracted to the ideas of Voltaire and the Enlightenment ideas of the rights of man, the rights of women. He is basically a middle-class guy who works so hard, he makes enough money, he buys a title and joins the high society of the upper class, the aristocrats. American colonies are starting to revolt against Britain. He's very much on the side of the French, or equally against the side of Britain. So he wants to help the American colonies. He forms a shell company called Rodrigue Hortalgo and Company, Hortalis and Company. And he basically funnels blankets and money and ammunition and guns through the West Indies and to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to help the American revolutionaries win the war. And in exchange, he gets tobacco back. He's just this wonderful, crazy guy. Then, as the French Revolution happens, he gets exiled to, I believe, Holland, or just wonderful, wonderful guy. And he has one of the largest libraries of Voltaire's works by the end of his life. So he's a revolutionary, a thinker. He's a real proponent of the common man. And that's really who Figaro is. Figaro is, in essence, Beaumarchais. It's a pun on his name, Fils Caron. His name is Pierre Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais. So Fils Caron is the son of Caron, Figaro. He puts himself in these three plays. This play is first turned into an opera by Paisiello, which didn't get as many legs as about 30, 40 years later. Rossini writes a version, which is the one we all know now. Of course, we know the second play, Marriage of Figaro. Mozart, 2 years after he sees the play on stage, writes the opera. So these are contemporary works of the time. These are contemporary comedies, or more specific, farces, and they are really aimed at skewering the rich. This is really kind of the first episode of White Lotus, if I may. He's taken basically a commedia dell'arte character and given him three-dimensional form and given him teeth, given him ammunition, shall I say, to really use humor and wit and his intellect to skewer the eccentricities and excesses of the aristocratic class.
Antony, in terms of the compositional side of things and how that relates, and how Rossini sort of took up the mantle of this story and decided to put pen to paper and what that side of things looks like.
One thing I really appreciate about Rossini is that he was really steeped in the theater and in music. His mother was a singer, his father was a trumpet player in one of the military bands, in the military band in the garrison in Bologna, I believe. And so he would almost literally be hanging off his mother's skirts backstage in performances while she was on stage. And he learned the piano, he learned French horn. He also sang. By the way, it's sort of commonly acknowledged that his fach, his register, was the same register as Figaro's. So high baritone, low tenor. Rossini brings a sort of wealth of musical and theatrical experience to this piece, and you can tell. All the vocal lines are all the vocal parts have their difficulties. Some are extremely difficult and some are moderately difficult, but they're all difficult. And Rossini really understood his singers very well. I think. Just on the Beaumarchais track, I put in the chat, I put this fascinating document, which is on the CIA website, cia.gov, about, and was unclassified in 1993, about Beaumarchais and the American Revolution. It's a long read, and it just, it solidifies the fact that this actually really did happen. Beaumarchais really did really did open that shell company, Rodrigue Hortales et Compagnie, at the behest of Louis. Beaumarchais was an opportunist as well. He was very much a Figaro. When he saw an opportunity, he took it, especially if it provided him with financial gain, and especially if it got him out of a hole. And Beaumarchais was in a lot of trouble for various reasons, and went to Louis the 15th, I think it was, because he lived through two kings, and wanted to get back into the king's favor, and said, "I will do anything you like, but get me back to court." And Louis said, "Well, first of all, I want you to go and go to England as my spy, and round up all the pamphlets of Madame du Barry, my mistress, you can possibly find that are scurrilous towards her," which he did. Then he went off to the court of Catherine the Great and did some spying there. And then the king wasn't done with him, and said, "You've got to do this on my behalf, and we can't let anybody know that the French are on the side of the American revolutionaries." Just in case you thought that, Beaumarchais was was totally altruistic, he had not been paid for some of the work for the arms and etc. that he had run in full, and he had tried to get back from the Americans this money. And there is a letter which you'll see at the end of this Beaumarchais document if you read it, that basically says, "Look, I'm about to die now, but could you please repay my debt to my daughters?" And they did, but they said, "Oh, we'll give you 800,000 livres pounds," which was half of what they owed, and basically you can take it or leave it. And the daughters took it. But so it was a wild story anyway, and that has nothing to do with Barber of Seville, but it's just intensely fascinating.
Greg, I want to bring you back into the conversation here, because and I don't want to put you on the spot, but when we were chatting Friday kind of about the stage business, you brought up, and I forgive me, the director from the 40s, because I said this was so lively over the course of the studio run on Friday. It's almost like I didn't know where to look because there was so much happening. And I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about how, where you've taken that inspiration and what you brought to this piece, because it serves it very well and it's very entertaining.
Hitchcock completely focuses your brain on the telephone that's about to ring, and then he pulls you up the stairs with the glass of milk that's poisoned. You know exactly what to think about. Hitchcock completely leads you through the story. These other directors, Mankiewicz, Preston Sturges, for example, are a little bit broader in their scope, so that there's always something in the background that is somehow related to something in the foreground. And that's when I was a younger director, I followed sort of the Hitchcock rule. I wanted to focus the audience on a certain part of the stage, and there are times when you have to do that, and there are certain tricks of the stage to do the equivalent of a close-up. But as I got older as a director, what I wanted to do was keep as many different plates spinning on the bamboo sticks as possible, because what I think is fascinating for an audience is to sort of see things in the background that will eventually move to the foreground. And of course, my main inspiration for this was Beaumarchais' watch. Beaumarchais invented a certain type of escapement in a watch which kept it ticking, and so actually the Act 1 finale, I haven't told the singers this, is very much about the internal mechanism of a watch. So there's a lot of kind of spirals and circles and people spinning around each other.